Hey everybody, welcome out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this time out, we're going to do another episode of Questions and Coffee with David. This is where I answer all your questions that come in through Facebook and YouTube and email and Twitter and Instagram and blah, blah, blah. And you guys are constantly asking questions about all different aspects of gear and mixing and mastering and computers and everything related to your home studio. And I'm glad to help. And that's what these videos are for. If you want one of your questions answered in an upcoming episode, be sure to send that question to info@homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Once again, that's info@homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I'll be sure to answer your question in an upcoming video. So this time we're going to take a look, and I'll answer 2 questions this time around. But before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, please hit that subscribe button. Help me out. It helps me out tremendously, and I really do appreciate it. Also go out to facebook.com/homerecordingmadeeasy and follow me there. And for more tips, tricks, concepts, and training around all aspects of home recording, mixing, and mastering, go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and make sure you sign up on the VIP email list. You will get 5 free training courses sent directly to your email box worth about $110. And you also get special pricing on all my different training courses. You get coupons, you get special deals, training webinars, things that not people in the general public get, only if you're a VIP member. So sign up for that. It's right on the homerecordingmadeeasy.com homepage. So now let's take a look at the first question of this week's episode. So the first question comes in from Franz, and Franz writes in, "Hi David, thanks for your Home Recording Made Easy series. Very clear and very comprehensive and useful too. In your videos, you mentioned that you often that one of the great advantages of the Universal Audio plugins is the DSP of the hardware that saves CPU on your computer. Recently, Waves brought the SoundGrid server on the market, which should do exactly the same. I like the Waves plugins a lot, and I would like to buy the SoundGrid server. Do you have any experience with it? And could you comment on it in one of your videos? Thanks a lot, Franz." Franz, thanks for writing in. I am aware of the Waves SoundGrid server. I've never used it. I have no experience with it. But from what I understand, what you're saying is true. This is a way to run all the Waves plugins platform on a different piece of hardware so it doesn't tax your CPU, much like the Universal Audio kind of setup, and that is true. But I don't have any experience with it. I don't know the cost of it. I don't know if you have a native plugin, will that same native plugin run on the SoundGrid, or is that a different version of the plugin? Do you have to buy a plugin that's special? I'm not familiar with all the details, so you have to figure that out. But the concept, if that is the concept's the same, and I really like it. And if you like the Waves plugins, then that's a great way to do it. But I don't have any experience with it. But I would say that if you're into Waves and you have a ton of Wave plugins, and all you need to do is get the SoundGrid server, and your current native plugins will run on it, and take the taxing off your internal CPU, then I think that sounds like a great idea. But Franz, let me know if you jump into that, what you found and what you like or dislike about it. Let us know, because I'd be interested to know, because I've never used it, but I do know about it. So I hope that answers your question. I know it wasn't exactly what you wanted to hear, but that's my take on it. So now the next question and the last question for this video, because it's a doozy, it's a long one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this on the screen in editing. I'm going to read it to you as best I can here. I'm going to try to move it a little closer because it is small text. Now, this has to do with the Kemper Profiler, guitar profiling amp. And I get a lot of questions about this, and I saved this one for most of the episode because lots of people ask me about the Kemper. I used to own a Kemper. I don't own one any longer. When I read the question, you'll hear why. And then I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on it. But let me read the question. It's kind of a long one, so be patient. So, "Hi Dave, hope you're doing well." Oh, this comes from let me see, who wrote into this? Oh, I don't have the name. And God, and I know who it is, and the name escapes me, but I remember your YouTube handle, and I'm sorry. But anyway, this will help Kemper people, or people that are thinking about getting into a Kemper or considering it. So it says, "Hi Dave, hope you're doing well. I come back to you because several months ago you advised me to take a look at the Kemper or an Axe Effects for my guitar recording, mainly metal and rock and post metal. I'm currently seriously thinking about a Kemper, only the Kemper head, since I plan to play live. Only the head, because I don't plan to play live. So the Kemper has two versions, a non-powered head that you can just go USB into your computer, and also a powered head that I think it's a 600 watt solid state amp that you can power a guitar cabinet. But he doesn't look like he's going to play live, so he's just going to get with the non-powered head. He writes, here are some, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can read it. Here, okay. Here are some of the reasons why the Kemper would be suitable for me. An infinite range of tones using amps profiling by Kemper Community, paid ones and free. Love the fact that you can record dry guitar signal and process the signal at the same time without a USB interface. Many of the Kemper alternatives force you to use USB as an additional audio interface and to be able to record the dry guitar signal. And this is a no-go for me since I plan to manage two audio interfaces in Studio One, and I want to use my PreSonus Studio One 192 mobile with hardware monitoring, zero latency. I love the fact that you can do reamping without a USB interface for the same reasons as above, integrated reverb and delays, and all other effects. You have an all-in-one box for practicing recording reamping without needing any other hardware. This is a must for a studio. So those are the positives that he feels that this is the reason why the Kemper might be for him. Here are some of the negatives. Here are some of the cons that I could find about the Kemper. I would prefer a pedal board format instead of a head format for my tiny studio. The interface does not seem to be very easy to use and can be a big learning curve to be able to use the Kemper effectively. Stock profiles are maybe not so great, and you have to buy third-party ones to have great tones. Having too many choices for tone can be overwhelming. So those are the cons that he's come up with, and I'll comment on some of those because some of those I know a lot about. As I don't have many recording gears for guitars except for a DI box, I think it would cost me more than the Kemper if I were to say buy hardware equivalent with a tube amp, a cab, a torpedo device, 2 notes torpedo device, a reamp box, and all the effects pedals. And as Pete says, Pete Woj from MixBetterNow.com, with all the plugins and gears we buy, we could easily buy a Kemper instead, and I agree with him. However, after seeing your YouTube video about the Kemper and reading the comments, I understood that the Kemper died on you and you preferred to take the money back and buy a tube amp instead of getting a new Kemper. Were you disappointed about the Kemper in the end? Do you think the Kemper is still worth it in 2018? In addition, I've read and watched several debates about the Kemper that is not very ethical because many people profile amps and share it or sell it all over the internet, and it's not really fair for amp companies that make real amps and make real amps in the music industry. What is your opinion about that? Sorry for the long email. All these questions about buying the Kemper is a big investment. I don't want to go wrong, and I prefer to ask some advice from you, my mixing mentor and instructor. Thanks for your answer, and don't hesitate to be honest about your thoughts about the Kemper. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and so and again, this video might be a little long, so if you're not into the Kemper and you don't want to hear about the Kemper and you don't have any interest, stop the video now, go on to one of my other videos. If you're interested about the Kemper, we're going to talk a little bit about this because, like I said, I get this question no fewer than 2 or 3 times a month, and I have for about 1.5 years since I've owned a Kemper. So let's start from the beginning. Yes, I did own a Kemper at one time, about 1.5 years ago. For the same reasons why you said the Kemper would be suitable for you in a studio was the same exact reasons why I bought it. And I saw it on YouTube like everybody else, and I was very intrigued to that as opposed to a different type of modeler like the Axe-Fx, or at the time, I don't know if the Line 6 Helix was quite out yet, but anything by Line 6. I've used all those things before, and I never really liked the sound of them, although I haven't used an Axe-Fx yet to that point. I like the fact that the Kemper wasn't really a modeler. It was actually a digital copy of the sound, a profile of the real deal. And so that to me was a lot more intriguing, and that is why I did buy it. I had it for about 3 or 4 months and I used it and I loved it. I had the powered head because I did use it in a band rehearsal situation, powering a 4x12 Marshall cabinet. It sounded fantastic. I had the floorboard. Somewhere in your question here, you said that you wish it had a pedal board. It does have a pedal board. It's an additional cost and it's not cheap. It's about $300. but you can control everything from the head from your feet if you want to, and I had that as well. With one cable, one Cat 5 cable went from the pedal board to the back of the head. There were no other cables needed, and your guitar would plug directly into the pedal board as well. It worked beautifully. While it worked, about 3 months after I had it, it died. It was having all kinds of problems where in the middle of playing, the patch would just change. There was something in the computer logic or something in the software that was buggy. That was a problem. I bought mine from sweetwater.com, as I buy all of my gear, or most of it anyway. And I talked to the representative. We tried some factory reboots and things like that, and it never seemed to really work right. And the rep at Sweetwater at the time had told me that that was kind of a known problem. I wasn't the first one to experience it. Now, keep in mind that you're right, it's expensive. I believe the Kemper with the pedal board was somewhere around $3,200. That's a lot of money. And up to that point, I played with it for a few months. And like I said, I really liked the tones. But what I found was when they offered to just give me a new one, I was a little iffy about it because I said, boy, I'm practicing with a band. I'm about to go out live. And if this is happening already, although I know people that play with them live, I just didn't feel like after that experience it would be rugged enough for the road. I could have just had a bad unit. The thing about the Kemper physically, let's set the tones aside. The tones, they sound great, and we'll talk about the profiles and third-party profiles versus stock profiles. But let's just put that aside. Let's just talk about the head itself. So the head itself, again, it's a solid state head. It's a computer, right? A lot of the buttons and knobs on there were plasticky. It felt kind of cheap. The metal casing was an aluminum. It wasn't that hard to navigate around once you got used to it, but you could go really deep, and you can get into deep editing if you wanted to, much like the Axe-Fx. But I found that it was probably easier to use from a user experience if you just wanted to keep it real simple and use it like a real amp with just three, bass, treble, gain, master, overall volume, that kind of a thing. You can do just that. You can shut the effects on or off. The outputs that you had to be able to route things to different places to capture a DI track and go to a cabinet or however you're going to do it, every possible scenario that I could come up with, I would be able to do. So that worked really well. But I wasn't thrilled with just the overall feel. I hesitate to use the word. It felt kind of chintzy to me, but it felt kind of chintzy to me. And again, to take it out on the road, I don't know that I would do that. And after having that software problem, I just said, oh boy, sometimes when you're dealing with, something with so many features and so many things it can do, there's so many more things that can go wrong, right? So I just said, after trying it, I said, for what I do, for the music that I play, I only need a couple of different tones. And honestly, I need a clean channel. I need a rhythm channel, like a distorted kind of a light gain crunch, and I need an over-the-top distorted channel for leads and solos. And then you can get a 3-channel tube head that can do that. And so I bought it thinking I would have all these options and all these tones. And what I found for me as a guitar player, I didn't need all of that. I don't do a lot of tracking in my studio with other guitar players. I have enough tones that I can get out of the few guitars that I have and the amp that I currently have, which is the Friedman BE50 Deluxe, which is a 3-channel amp with a super clean channel, a mid-gain and a high-gain with 3 separate master volume controls. I run that into a Torpedo, a 2-notes captor, which then runs out to my DAW so I can get the dry signal and I can get the amp signal, which sound great, or I can mic up the cab if I wanted to. And that was enough for me. So that was kind of my experience. I returned it. I figured it was way overkill. It was a cool thing, but the construction of it was just a little bit too chintzy for me. I did not feel it would be road ready. I was really nervous about some of these glitches with the software, although again, lots of people use them, have no problems. But it really then came down to, do I really need to have all these profiles and amps? No, I don't need them for what I do. So I said it was overkill, and I went back to the Friedman, and I love the Friedman Deluxe BE50 or BE50 Deluxe. Love it. So that was my thing. Now you talked about third-party profiles versus the stock profiles. Yes, I found that most of the stock profiles were crap. I know there's probably some good ones in there. You can go on the exchange on the Kemper website, and there's thousands of them. you can find a lot of great ones in there. And if you're one of those people that want to sit down and download a ton of them and tweak them in and listen to them and really get under the hood, the Kemper's a great that you'll find some great stuff for free. What I found is that the third-party profiles are really where it was at, and they're really inexpensive. One's by Michael Britt. He's real popular in the Kemper profile world. You want any kind of amp, anything from Vox to Marshall to, I mean, anything. He's got it, and he's done a wonderful job making the profiles. Chop Tones is another one. I think Top Jimmy is another one, and there's some others. And the profiles are reasonable. You can buy one of their packs that have, 10, 15 amp profiles for $50. Well worth it over the stock ones, in my opinion. And that's what I did. I bought a lot of third-party ones, and the ones that I used I really, really liked. I thought they all sounded fantastic. Now, the thing about the profiles is that the profiler, if you know how to profile an amp properly, will sound amazing. There's a lot of profiles that are in the exchange that are crap because people that are doing them don't know what they're doing and they don't sound right. But the guys that know what they're doing, they sound fantastic. So I would tell you, if you're going to go with a Kemper, you could try the stock ones. And if you're one that wants to sit there and go through hundreds and hundreds of profiles to find 10 of them that you really like, knock yourself out. If you want to bypass all of that and you just want to get, you say to yourself, I want a set of Fenders that are really good. I want a set of Marshalls. I want a set of Friedmans, maybe a set of Diesels or whatever. Michael Britt, Chop Tones, Top Jimmy, those three third-party profile, makers, you'll find everything you need and then some, and you won't spend a ton of money. In comparison to what you're going to spend on the Kemper, it's pennies. So think of it that way. So that's how I would do it. Now, you also, let's talk about the ethical thing about profiling in a second. Let me just kind of scan through there. So you are correct in saying that it's cheaper to buy, if you're going to buy a Kemper and a pedal board, the pedal controller for say $3,200. That's going to be cheaper than buying 3 or 4 tube heads if you want a Fender sound and a Marshall sound and a high gain sound and then a Vox sound. That's 4 tube heads, even on the used market. And then you're going to buy a bunch of pedals and effects, delays, reverbs, and all the things that come in the Kemper. And then you're going to buy, some kind of a switching unit to be able to do all of that. You're absolutely, and then cabinets, right, with all the different speaker cabinets. You're right. You're going to spend 100 times more than what it would be on the Kemper or an Axe-Fx. And that's the beauty of those. So it really comes down to this. And this is what I tell people. If you are someone in a studio who does lots of guitar recordings, whether it be for clients or yourself, and you are someone that needs more than 3 tones, the Marshall tone, the Fender tone, the Vox tone isn't going to do it, or the Marshall tone, the Fender tone, and a high gain tone is not going to do it. You need more. You want to have a whole rack of Friedmans. You want to have a whole rack of Diesels. You want a whole rack of Fender Bassmans and Voxes and all. If you need to have more than 3 or 4 tones, then I would say, go ahead with something like a Kemper or an Axe-Fx. If you truly are going to use all of that stuff, it's worth it. If you're someone who does a lot of, loves to do a lot of tweaking, get under the hood and customize patches and all that stuff, the Kemper's great. The Axe-Fx is great for that. Now, the Kemper, you don't have to do that, as I said. It could be just simple plug and play. And the front panel, in some respects, looks like a real amplifier with real dials, and you don't need to dive under the hood. But if you really want to maximize some of this stuff, you got to dive under the hood a little bit. And if you're okay with that, then, or if that's your thing, then it's great. And so then I would say go with the Kemper. But if you're only someone like myself or someone that says, you know what, I just need a really clean channel or a really clean amp like a Fender, and I need like a Marshall, or I want a mid to a high gain crunch, or a high end amp, a high gain amp that I can turn down and dial down the crunch a little bit. Something like a Friedman, where you can get, just on the verge of breakup to insane gain, then you probably would be better off just getting a couple of tube heads and getting something like the 2 Notes Captor, which is something where you can plug it's like a load box, and then you can also, they have a cabinet sim, which sounds fantastic, that you can go right into your DAW, and at the same time, you can take the direct out of that guitar signal right into your DAW, and you can use their free software called the Wall of Sound to change all the speaker cabinets out. That's a fantastic solution. So you can do that as well. And that will, that'll give you just 2 heads and you'll have all the cabinets and software. That's the way to do, you could do that. And you can also use that as a way to reamp if you wanted to reamp after. So I guess it really depends on what is your true, what do you really need for guitar tones? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because the Kemper is a huge investment if you're not going to really use it for more than a couple of tones, in my mind. As far as its reliability, if you don't plan to play live, like you said, you don't plan to play live, then I wouldn't be as concerned about the reliability. If you did have a problem, buy it. Don't buy it used. I wouldn't buy it used. I would buy it brand new somewhere where it's warranted. And like Sweetwater, because they'll stand behind all their stuff, even if it's out of warranty technically. If you're having a problem and you're a really good customer of theirs, they will stand behind the product. Trust me, they will make it right. So I would deal with someone like Sweetwater on that. And if you're just going to keep it in your home studio, I think you'll be fine. Excuse me, the difference between something like the Axe-Fx and the Kemper, I don't have real experience with the Axe-Fx. I know as of the recording of this video, the Axe-Fx 3 just hit, and I've seen some YouTube videos, and it really does sound amazing, and it looks really cool with the color screen. But what I found for me in the end is I'm just old school. I just need a really good tube head. I need a 3-channel head, which the Friedman is. I want a 412 cabinet with a mix of different types of greenback speakers, and that is the tone that I love, and I don't need to go much further than that. I can get out of my Friedman a real high gains thing. I could get a really, really super clean thing, and in the Friedman Deluxe 50, they have the real clean channel, which is a real Fender-ish style clean, and if I wanted a really insane amount of gain, I could just get a really good high gain pedal, you know what I mean? Something like that. And as far as other effects go, all I run is some reverb and delay and a wah. My pedal board is really small, so I don't need all the crazy sound effects that come in the Kemper. And honestly, the delays in the Kemper I didn't like. The reverbs were okay. The chorusing was okay. And the phaser was okay. And that's about all I used. I don't use a ton of effects. But I wasn't crazy about their delays in the Kemper. But that might have changed. It's been a couple of years now. There's been lots of firmware updates. They might have a lot better ones now. I just don't know. So that's kind of the deal on the Kemper. Now, you asked about, not being very ethical because many people profile the stuff. They sell them online. And are you really taking away from the amp manufacturer? And I understand both sides of the argument. And here's my thing. And this is where the Kemper is brilliant. I mean, I'll give them that. It's brilliant. The difference between a Kemper and an Axe-Fx or a Helix is that the Axe-Fx and the Helix are someone's interpretation using code and software to model something. And, they even go as far as to call it almost, they almost call it what it really is, but they kind of change the name enough so you know what it is, but, it's not the real thing. It's a copy or it's an interpretation. Whereas the Kemper, and if you've seen it online and you know about it, the way they're recording the amplifier, that is like taking a photocopy of that tone and putting it in the box. The difference with the Kemper is you can't make a Kemper profile without the real tube amp right? You can't have it. In order to make a Kemper profile, you have to have the real amp. In order for them to make a patch for the Axe-Fx, let's say, they might have modeled or done some stuff with an amp, but they didn't actually take a picture of the amp sound-wise and put it in their box. They did that with code. And I know it's a lot deeper than that. I'm trying to be really basic about this. So there is a difference there. Do I think that it's unethical? I think that if Kemper is making profiles of, let's say, Friedman, and I don't know if Friedman has a deal with Kemper or not. They might. Kemper has profiles, and people make profiles of the BE100, and they sell it. Now, if you don't have an agreement with Friedman and they don't get a cut or a royalty of that, is that stealing? Some people will say it is. Some people would say it is. I tend to lean on the side that it is. It's no different than if you took a CD that you purchased, burned it, and then sold the songs, MP3s or WAV files to somebody, or even gave them away for that matter. You did not get the rights of the permission of the content creator to do that. And I'm a little sensitive to this because I create content. I'm sitting here in front of you, the camera. You know about all my courses. You know, people could take that, copy it, and sell it. And, you know, I've caught people over the years. I've had a lot of my followers. You guys are like my army out there watching for that stuff. And I've had people send me stuff, and I've, you know, had to threaten one with an attorney, and, you know, we were able to settle it. But, you know, someone could try to take my digital content, make a copy of it, and sell it. And that's kind of where the Kemper is in my head. I think it would be great, and maybe they do now, I don't know. I've been away from the Kemper profile for a while, where maybe they're starting to have some agreements and arrangements with different manufacturers where the Kemper company can actually create profiles using, for example, the Friedman name and sell it as such. Then I think it's totally okay. As long as you have agreements and there's been some contract worked out with the company and it's all above board, I think it's great. But Kemper isn't really doing that. It's the third-party people, you know, that will copy their own amp and sell it off. I think that's wrong. I think the Kemper's wonderful if you're someone who you have your own amp collection, let's say, and you want to go to a gig and you don't want to bring 3 tube amps with it. You want to profile your own collection, put it in the box, and take it on the road. That's perfectly fine because you paid for the amp and you're using it for your own personal use. I think that's okay. Much like if you bought a CD, ripped it on your computer, and then put it on 3 of your own mobile devices, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that's perfectly legal. But to take that, make a profile, if I were to make a profile of my Friedman, my new Friedman, and then sell it to you, that's not right. Is that hurting the livelihood of the Friedman company? Well, yeah, if enough people do it. And so I know there's people on both sides of the argument. I've seen the videos that you suggest about people talking about this. And at first I didn't know that I agreed with it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've seen and heard the arguments, I tend to lean on the side that it's not the most ethical thing to do. I don't think it is. I think it is a form of stealing. It really is. And for someone who myself creates digital content, I'm really sensitive to that because my digital content, like, you know, the stuff that an amp company puts out is how I feed my family, how they feed their families. And for someone to take that copy and give it away or sell it, to make it even worse, to make money off of it, it's even more unethical. So what I would say to you at the end, again, if you need more than 2 or 3 tones, a Kemper might be good for you, or some kind of a modeler in your studio if you need that for your workflow. And you want to have something that has ease of use as far as multiple outputs and different routing configurations, I think it's great. Taking it on the road, I would worry about that. And I would also say, again, buy it new, don't buy it used. Buy it from a reputable dealer where if you do have a problem, you can get that taken care of and they'll take care of you. And again, I always suggest sweetwater.com, but you may have a local online retailer or someone that you've dealt with that you feel comfortable with. That's fine. Get something with a warranty. I wouldn't buy it on the used market because I don't know how easy they are to be fixed. And that's my thought on those are my thoughts on the Kemper. So anyone that asks me about the Kemper in the future, I'm going to refer them back to this video. And that's why this video is extra long. And I wanted to spend some time on it because I get this question a lot. But in the end, does it sound great? The Kemper with the right profiles sounds fantastic. And in the end, if you're just worried about, does it sound as good as a real amp? If the profile was done correctly, it is you couldn't tell the difference between the real deal and the profile if the thing is done right. And I know that because at the time that I owned the Kemper, I also owned a couple other Friedmans and I owned a couple of Marshalls, and I bought a couple of profile packs from Michael Britt and from Top Jimmy, and I've A/B'd them in the room. And I don't know, you know, my ears are pretty sensitive and I can pick stuff out pretty good. I'm sure there's people that have a more critical ear than I, but I couldn't tell the difference between his profiles and the real amp in the room. Could not tell the difference. Now, you know, he may have had a different cabinet and there may be slip, but I mean, overall, I mean, his stuff sounds 99.999% real to the deal. And so sound-wise, amazing. Reliability-wise, question mark. Do you really need it? Refer back to what I said a little earlier about how many tones do you need. Is it ethical? It's ethical. It's not unethical. If you're just doing it for yourself and you're not selling and trying to make money on someone else's product, then I think you're fine. And that's my thought on it. So I hope that helps. I know that's a long ramble on this, but those are my thoughts on it. And in the end, it really comes down to your workflow. What do you need? What do you really need? And if you really need all those tones and you need all those sounds and you don't have any of that and you have to go out and buy a whole arsenal of amps, cabinets, and pedals, you're right, you're going to spend a lot more money in the end. It all depends on what you really need. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any more questions or want more clarification or want me to do another video on this, if a few people write in and ask me about it, I'll do another video and we can have a dialogue about this. But that's my thoughts on it. So thank you once again for joining me for Questions and Coffee with David. Again, send your emails in with your questions. I'll put them in a future episode. And once again, go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and check out everything I have going on there. And until the next video, I will see you guys all soon. Take care.